tenora dancer, and sim means sesame in Arabic. So if you ever buy a stuck door or anything, then what you say is "Iftah ya sim," which means "open sesame." So it's one of the things I remember from my first Arabic class I ever took. So really, I have these photos to show you the bands. Lorna has a kind of a medium-sized band. There's 2 drummers, a tambourine, an accordion, a keyboardist, and a singer. She also has the option to work with someone to play the zills for her, but she doesn't like to work with him because he always steals the show. I saw him perform one other time, and I can attest to the fact that he would steal the show. So before I went to Cairo, I spent quite a lot of time studying the permissions that foreign dancers need in order to work in Egypt, because for about a year in 2003, foreigners were completely banned from working as belly dancers in Cairo. They could work as folkloric dancers, but very specifically, they were banned from working as belly dancers. Interestingly, the law was overturned as suddenly as it was passed, and nobody seems to know why. And I actually went and I looked at the statute in Arabic, which took me a long time to read, but it was a really interesting piece of information because it was buried inside of a statute that said 3 specific professions were not allowed to be foreigners. They had to be Egyptian nationals. Those were tourist guides, belly dancers, and third was border crossing officers between Palestine and Egypt. So it was a very specific set of things that you had to be Egyptian to do, and it wasn't really clear to me why belly dancing was on there. But then it was overturned, although the other 2 were not overturned. Belly dancing was overturned. So now you can be a foreigner and work there as a belly dancer, not as a tourist guide. However, after that time, they passed some very restrictive laws for foreign belly dancers. They can only have a contract with a single venue at a time, so Lorna has to work only at the Oberoi Thoroughboats at one time, and also you can't apply for a work visa until you've been offered a position, a contract. There's also modesty laws that dictate what dancers can and cannot wear. Specifically, costumes are supposed to cover the navel, or they're supposed to wear a body stocking. However, they're very infrequently enforced. As you can see, Lorna's not, well, you probably can't see in this photo, but in other photos you can see that she's not wearing one this evening. She told me, actually, before we went on this ride, that the managers of the boat were telling her that she had to wear it through the Egyptian New Year because the police would be looking for bribes in the period leading up to that time. But she managed to convince them she didn't need it tonight, so we got to see her on the body stocking. Dancers are also legally obliged to use Egyptian musicians, which is a very interesting thing to put in writing because most dancers want to go to Egypt specifically so they can work with Egyptian musicians. It's not like they're bringing their entire shillelagh down with them. So this was one of the new statutes put in place after foreign dancers were allowed to work again. Also, the musicians come as a package deal with the dancer. It's the dancer that pays the musicians. So Lorna pays the musicians and the folk dancers out of her own salary. And she tells me, like, if she only has 1 sale a day on the boat, it's not worth, she can't pay the folk dancers because she won't make enough money. So she'll just go on herself that day. Next slide, please. There's Lorna doing the Saidi dance with her fanoon. Those are the 2 fanoon over there. Let's see. Saidi dance, if you don't know, is a folk dance from southern Egypt, which is the same thing as Upper Egypt, which I often find confusing. Belly dancers also, I was talking a little about the restrictions. They can't work during Ramadan, which is the holy month of fasting and celebrating at night. But folk dancers can. Also, there are some cultural venues which will restrict, they won't allow belly dancers to work there, but folk dance is a cultural thing, and therefore they're allowed to work there. So a lot of times, like I know Lorna and most of the other foreign dancers I know, they'll leave the country at that time and just go, you know, like she'll go back to Britain and do a lot of workshops there. I don't know, like if you're an Egyptian dancer at that time, maybe you would take a lot of gigs as a folk dancer or just take some time off. I don't really know, but you still can't work. Right, so that's the Saidi dance. And then the next slide, please. At the end of her set, Lorna walks around and people can photograph her, or there's a professional photographer in pharaonic gear who will walk around and do professional photographs as well. And he also gets to take the little speedboat because he takes all the negatives, goes and gets everything developed, and then comes back and you can buy the photos. It's very exciting. So that brings us to the end of our time with Miss Lorna. And then the next slides that I have are my photo journal, so we can go to the next slide. And the next slide. This is a view from the Horus Hotel. It's a very typical view in Cairo, very crowded, lots of buildings in very small space. Also, that building over there, there are people living in it. It's considered a finished building. What you do is, if you own a building, then your whole family kind of lives in it. And then, like, say your son is getting married, then you have the next floor is ready to build, so you can build a new apartment for your son. And then you can have a place to live. Next slide, please. This is the house I lived. This is a view from the place I ended up living. Those are houseboats that are across the Nile from me. I lived on one for a day. That didn't work out so well, so I moved somewhere else. Next slide. Thank you. This is at night. This place was a restaurant, so it would get light. It would be very lit up, and also there was a lot of music. And for the first week after Ramadan ended, because I arrived during Ramadan, because you can't get married during that time. The first week after Ramadan ended, there was a wedding every single night, and we could hear the music very well. In fact, we would shake the windows in our apartment, and they played the same song every single night. Usually twice. I mean, but I got to know the song very well, so it was very exciting. And it was great because actually, from our balcony, I could see everyone dancing, and I could see the bride, and I could see the people making the film of the wedding and everything. So it was very fortunate that I chose that apartment in the end. Next slide, please. This is Mahmoud's, and it's the largest belly dancing emporium probably in the world. I doubt there's any place anywhere else that's larger. It's 3 entire stories, like a whole house full of costumes. I mean, it's just, yeah, exactly. It's heaven. It's heaven, but it's also really overwhelming. And in fact, I'd gone there with a group of dancers who were visiting, and we walked in, and everybody's like, wow! And then we went up, and everybody's like, whoa! And then we went to the 3rd floor, and everybody's like, oh my god! And they were so overwhelmed that nobody ended up buying anything. But it's just full. I mean, they have scarves, and they have skirts, and they have bras, and they have dresses, and they have, jewelry and headdresses and everything you could possibly imagine that you'd ever want as a belly dancer is inside that shop. So I encourage you to go. Next slide, please. This is on the yellow wall. It's not showing up so well, but it's the water tower. That's what that crazy-looking building right there is. It took me forever to find out what that was. But that's the water tower, and that's the sunset over the Nile from the water tower. Next slide.